I didn't think that I needed one because I called the police. I, tried to get out of a situation that was potentially very violent for me. And at that time, I really thought that, hey, the police came to my house. The house was tore up. I had called 911. I was trying to get help. Why did I need an attorney? You know what I mean? I can tell this to the judge. It's in family court. They're family friendly. They're supposed to help me.
But they didn't help her. In fact, the judge in her case, a woman, did just the opposite.
Then she said to me, she said, your spouse abuse petition is denied, and I'm granting the father joint legal physical custody, okay, with primary physical custody with the mother. Mr. He is no longer required to abide by the, protective order. And he can come to the house and pick up the baby on Saturdays and return her on Saturday evening. So I asked her, I said, well, Your Honor, I don't understand what happened. And she said, well, that's what happens when you go to court without a lawyer. She goes, smart people spend the money no matter how much, because I said, oh, I can't afford a lawyer. And she goes, well, smart people spend the money to come to court, because they know that it's important to have a lawyer. And she goes, and I'm a judge, I can't give you legal advice. And that was her attitude, and I was like, oh my God. So I left then, realizing that somehow I had blown that, somehow something had gone desperately wrong.
It was only at this point that Kathy found the Hofheimer law offices. Seeing the brochure for their community outreach seminar on divorce, called Second Saturday, Kathy sought Charlie's help. Then she met Diane.
I remember when I first met Diane, I came into Charlie's office, and she was my little guardian angel, because I was going through so much hell, and the system didn't work for me. And everywhere I went, there were these little brochures, that said, if you're a battered wife, right outside the courtroom is this brochure. If you're a battered wife, come, do these things, and I did all those things.
Kathy's story began in 1991 and is still in the family courts, mainly due to her tenacity. Not satisfied with the court decision, Kathy took Suzanne to Arizona and tried to get a change of order. While she was there, Jay filed for joint custody ex parte in Virginia and got it. These ex parte hearings, or hearings done when only one side is in court, are a frightening and daily occurrence in family courts.
The husband got 2 months custody, and when he got the 2 months, he ended up going in and asking for full custody, and he got it. And he got it on a day when the mother was in Arizona fighting to get jurisdiction out there, so she wasn't even here.
Suzanne, please. Suzanne. Suzanne, please, come here.
During the time that we were waiting for the appeal to be perfected and going through all the things took forever, the little girl kept crying and crying that she didn't want to go back with her father. So I said, maybe you should videotape it. Maybe the courts will see how bad it is.
Kathy took Susie to medical doctors. They determined that there was vaginal stretching and a suspicion of sexual abuse.
There are 3 medical reports that all show progressions. 2 centimeters dilated, hymen intact, rash, a serious rash, not like a mild rash, but a serious vaginal rash, hymen intact. And then a couple months later, the child complains of a sore bottom, and then guess what? No longer is the hymen intact. And that's natural for a 2-3-year-old daughter?
Kathy called the therapist who had been seeing the child. The therapist called social services, and the child was taken to social services, and she told them what was going on and demonstrated withdrawals, and then they took her to Dr. Ducote immediately then, so there wasn't any time lapse. And there was evidence, physical evidence, that matched what the child was saying. And so Kathy called me from the doctor, and she said, Diane, I'm so sorry, it's true, it is happening, but at least it's over.
But it was far from over. The judge ordered an independent therapist to become involved, one who ignored the fact that the child had just disclosed sexual abuse.
First thing this guy does, even though he knows she's been sexually abused, and he knows that the alleged perpetrator is her father, that Suzanne said it was her daddy, he puts her daddy in therapy with her, and then questions her in front of her daddy about her sexual abuse.
He was sitting there with Jay in the room asking Suzanne if she'd been abused. And Suzanne's going, stop, stop. And he's doing it that way. I mean, he basically has ruined the whole thing and protected Jay.
Good girl.
This same judge, well respected in the community, refused to allow the tape of Susie's crying. She also refused to allow this picture which Susie drew, showing no arms, long legs, and a perspective which one psychologist believed revealed sexual abuse. She did, however, allow this Kathy cartoon, submitted by Jay's attorney, attempting to show too much attachment to the mother.
I don't know how it all happened, but by the time we had the hearing, the father got custody.
I had thought about leaving, but my mother was dying. I had 3 other children. And I just prayed, God, don't make me have to do this. You know, please, somebody somewhere has to be able to help.
But no help came. Right before Kathy was supposed to turn Susie over to her father, Kathy and Susie secretly took off into the night.
2 o'clock in the morning, I took my stuff and I packed my bags. I didn't even know where I was going to go, to be honest with you. I didn't even know, I had no money. And my income tax check came the day before, and I said, okay, God, here we go. Lead me, direct me, let's go. And we did.
That was in 1994. For 2 years, Kathy and Susie lived underground, happily and safely.
Kathy was actually the first major custody case that we tried before a circuit court judge. And Diane literally was bedridden by the result, in the fetal position for 3 or 4 days or 5 days, I don't remember exactly how long. And when she came out of that state, and that's the only way I can express it, there burned in her soul an absolute commitment to the children of sexual abuse cases, and she has been unyielding.
And unyielding is what Diane must be when she hears cases like Pam's.